Ever since my friend John bent the $100 bill wherever it might be behind me, I've had a little harder of a time hiding it. But I guess I have to address this. And I was planning on never talking about this again, but, these things. So the $100 bill has a long story behind it, why it's on the set. People do occasionally ask me why it's there. And now lately I just tell people it's just something behind me. It's like everything else behind me. But there's a whole story behind it. And what it started with was I got several people asking me, going, Steve, is it true that the Supreme Court said you do not need a driver's license to drive a car? Someone told me that they actually said that. The Supreme Court of the United States said that. I said, oh, where'd they say that? No, I heard they did. Do you know? I said, I've never seen them say that. So I'm not aware of what you're talking about, other than I do know that people who believe that. I said, but there's no such case citation that you can show me from the Supreme Court saying that. And so I started getting emails of varying degrees of hostility from people who say, Steve, you're wrong, to obscenities. And there are people out there who insist that the Supreme Court has, in fact, ruled on driver's licenses and explicitly said you don't need one. States cannot force you to get them. And so I said, well, could somebody please show me a Supreme Court citation that says that? And nobody could. I'd get all kinds of other stuff. Well, this case out of West Virginia from 1923, somebody sent me a case from 1875. And I don't think any states had implemented driver's licenses yet, because I don't think cars were on the road here yet in that sense. So I finally got kind of tired of it. So I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to offer a contest. Contest, by the way, it's not a bet, it's a contest. And I said, if somebody can send me a Supreme Court citation that mentions driver's licenses for automobiles and says specifically that states cannot require them, I will send somebody $100. And I held up the 100, wherever it might be, I held up the $100 bill and said, I will give this to the person who provides me that citation. I started getting people sending me all those same sites. Steve, a case from West Virginia from 1912 says, no. Supreme Court. Well, the Supreme Court also said you got a right to travel. That might be, but in that case, they mentioned driver's licenses. Do they? No? Okay. So my contest that I ran, and by the way, I'm one of the few people who actually does contests on YouTube, and I laid the rules out because Google actually says you have to. A lot of people don't, but I did. I said, here are the rules, and I had the actual rules there. And I said, whoever is the first to send me such a case gets the $100. And a lot of people didn't get that this was actually an elaborate joke. There is no such case. And so when I offer you $100 to produce something that doesn't exist, it is a fool's errand. You cannot win, because there can be no winners unless the Supreme Court did it after the contest ran. So I had people sending me all kinds of stuff, and I would respond back and say, I'm sorry, which Supreme Court case are you referring to? Well, no, if you take this one case from West Virginia, the one case from New York, the one case from Chicago, and you combine them all together, and then I can show you where the Supreme Court has said that you got a right to travel. Does it mention driver's licenses? No, but the case from Chicago does. Okay, does the Supreme Court mention driver's licenses no? And so the contest always said you must provide me with a Supreme Court citation. And so as a follow-up to that video, before I pulled the contest, which I did about 2 or 3 years ago, I said the winning entry, if there was one, would look like this: 124 U.S. 568, because all Supreme Court citations are simply U.S. There's nothing else between the numbers. First number is the page number, and the second number following the U.S. is the volume number. So all U.S. Supreme Court citations look like that: number, U.S., number. I had people sending me links to stories. I had people sending me photographs. I go, look, just send me the citation. And I would routinely get these emails with strings of citations, literally hundreds of citations. They go, it's in there. And I go, I've got time to look. Which one's because remember, I only need one. Which one is the Supreme Court citation that says what you say it says? And they'd always say, no. You take one word from this one, a sentence from that one, a concept from this one, and none of them are Supreme Court cases. I go, well, but where is this? And so I understand that people believe that you can conjure up this right to travel without a driver's license thing by looking at 17 different cases. But until the Supreme Court says it, the Supreme Court hasn't said it. And that was the joke, okay? Now, it's my fault because I thought more people would get the joke, but they didn't. So even though I took that video down and ended the contest, I still, to this day, almost every single day, get comments about the bet I had, because people have now, they can't find the contest video, so they call it a bet, and about how, if it's not too late, I found something for you. And so, number one, you can't enter a contest after it's over. And number two, these people don't have Supreme Court cases. So I got a note the other day, somebody goes, Steve, the Queen of England. I go, what about the Queen of England? Besides the fact that she's passed away. And they go, oh, I'm sorry, the King of England. I go, okay. They go, the King of England doesn't need a driver's license. I go, has the Supreme Court said that? No, but the King of England does not have a driver's license. Okay, I think the King of England lives in another country. I could check on that. But I think his residence is not in the U.S. What's that got to do with whether or not you need a driver's license? Are you the King of England? Are you? And so I got one the other day where a guy goes, Steve, I hope it's not too late for your bet. And I go, what bet? And he goes, $100 bet. I go, it was a contest, which is over, ended several years ago. So yes, you're too late, but why? And he goes, oh, well, there's a case now that came out recently involving a Native American tribe, and a court has ruled that if you're driving on tribal land, then non-tribal police cannot enforce their laws on the drivers who are in the tribe on tribal land. Okay, was it a Supreme Court case? No. Okay, does that say that states cannot regulate their own roads? No. In fact, it says that the states can't regulate the roads that are in the reservation, but it doesn't say anything about the roads that are not in the reservation. But that wasn't even a Supreme Court case. And so again, people supplying me things that wouldn't have won the contest, even if they'd been on time, which they weren't. So one thing I have to let you know is that after I stopped my contest, a couple other people picked it up. I saw a guy who's offering either $500 or $1,000 on his channel to anybody who can do that. And I wish him well because I know that he's now getting all the threats and hate that I got. But I have to let you know that people would literally send me a whole list of cases, or they'd send me a link to a website. There's a couple websites that have all this junk on them. But nowhere on any of them was a Supreme Court case mentioning the lack of driver's licenses. And so the one thing I kept getting, and I've talked about this before, was I'd get a link to a Black's Law Dictionary from 1909 or 1910, something like second edition Black's Law Dictionary. See, it defines driver as, okay, Black's Law Dictionary is not the Supreme Court. Well, the Supreme Court relies on Black's, yeah, when it comes to dictionary definitions, because it's legal definitions sometimes. But that doesn't make the Supreme Court endorsement of Black's Law Dictionary mean that the Supreme Court will now defer to Black's Law Dictionary on what the laws of the U.S. are. I even also did a video once called Learning to Count to One, because of the fact I said that you can win this contest by submitting one case from the Supreme Court. I'd get a dozen cases, none of them from the Supreme Court. And so I was arguing that I think most people, when they are asked to provide one thing, if they provide 12, they recognize that each of those 12 things is too weak by itself. Otherwise, you submit just the one thing. Also, I got to think about the King or Queen of England repeatedly. Two other things. I got a note this morning from a guy who goes, Steve, I want to throw my hat into the ring. I want to throw my hat into the ring. And he sent me a link to a site I'd never seen before. There was, again, a wall of gibberish. No Supreme Court cases, though. And so I just wrote back to him, I go, you're throwing your hat into what ring now? Well, I don't even understand this. And so it's gotten to the point now, I apologize for the edits. I'm not chopping out things I've said. I have a problem where I keep clearing my throat. And I could do that on camera. I could simply mute it, but then it'll look like this. And I'll leave that in. So you see man clearing throat being mimed, but with no sound. So clearly, these are people who never saw the original contest. or they saw it so long ago they forgot what it was all about. But again, it was simply, can you show me the Supreme Court citation where they said what you think they said? Because I can find you all kinds of sites that say, yes, Supreme Court said this, without showing me where. So if you said to me, Steve, if you actually think the Supreme Court says that you've got the right to be told your rights by the side of the road and you get arrested, you think the Supreme Court said that? I go, yeah. Miranda versus Arizona. I forgot the site off the top of my head, but I could find it in 30 seconds. And so it's very easy to find Supreme Court sites when they exist. And if you think throwing your hat into some ring 3 years after a contest has ended and you've sent me a wall of text, no, that's not going to win the contest. And it's not a bet. And it's not a ring either. And finally, I got to tell you that one of the funniest things that I saw was an email a guy sent me. And he said, Steve, can you confirm something for me? Can you confirm? In other words, he's not asking me if it's true. He's assuming it's true. Can you confirm something for me? And I go, well, it depends on whether it's true or not and if I have knowledge of it, but sure, fire away. What do you got? He goes, I've spoken to several people who told me what's going on with your contest. And he said, people keep winning it. And rather than admit that you've lost, you simply pay people off $100 at a time. And you've been just throwing down the $100 bills, just willy-nilly, just throwing them down because you don't want to admit you lost, but you have lost. And since it's a contest, you put the Google rules right there, and Google will get you in trouble if you don't pay off on a contest that you have rules on that people won. You've just been quietly paying off winners $100 at a time, but you know you've lost. And can you just confirm that for me? I said, I can't confirm that for you because it's not true. I said, if you went back at the time and looked, when I took the contest down, I believe at that time, I put up a video that said, contest has ended. And I cross-linked the two videos. And I explained how it ended, why it ended, and the fact that it was, in fact, ending with no winners. And by the way, if I was paying people off $100 a pop just to provide me a Supreme Court citation, all you got to do is call up everybody you know and go, hey, guess what? Send a note to this guy that says these three numbers, US, these three numbers, and he'll send you a $100 bill. And you'll get the $100 bill off the set and he'll replace it with another one. And by the way, you can tell all your friends. They can tell all their friends. Do you think that you could keep that a secret, that all you got to do is write an email to a guy and he'll send you $100 in cash? Can you confirm that for me? Now, I like the idea that somebody out there thinks I have enough money to do that, to just mail $100 to anybody who can email me a citation about the length of 2 long words, maybe a word and a half. I'm just throwing money away like that. Can you confirm that for me? And I wrote him back. I said, not only can I not confirm it, it's not true. It didn't happen. We got no winners. There is no such case. And I'm sorry that some people get hung up on this. But I'm not going to get into a huge debate about the rest of it because it's a futile effort, as I like to say. And I'm going to end on this note and say, yes, I just said futile. And someone is going to say, Steve, it's futile. It's futile. It's not futile. See, you're over-enunciating that second syllable. And I've mentioned before that I occasionally get feedback on how I pronounce words. And many people don't appreciate the fact that I'm speaking at a rather rapid clip. And if I didn't over-enunciate some words, I'd have to repeat them anyway. So I'd rather say futile than futile, hopeless, and give you a synonym to let you know what I was trying to say. Because you might think, I heard you said the word futile, F-E-U-D-A-L, as opposed to F-U-T-I-L-E. So I am conscious of the fact that people are trying to listen to me, and some of them are even trying to understand me. So I'd rather over-enunciate a word from time to time than have everyone go, well, he pronounced it all correctly, but I missed half those words, because that would actually defeat the purpose. So there you go. There you go. But no, I cannot confirm that for you. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.